Hey Badger Army, it's Nick here, hoping you're all well. Today we're going to be talking about brief brushes with fame. Most particularly when you spot yourself in a magazine. Culminating in the time that I spotted myself in an issue of Kerrang this week in 2002. Coming to that in a moment, the first time I ever got my name published in anything was in Wanted comic. I don't know if anyone else remembers Wanted comic. This was from 1989. It was all about the adventures of the following characters: Owl Capone, Budgie Malone, and Elliot Nestegg. You can see what they were getting at with that. And if we look here, there is my name in with a letter that I sent in. I'll see if I can put a bigger version on it in case you did want to read it. Although, do be warned, I was 8 years old at the time. Critical analysis was definitely not my thing. But I did, however, feel like it was my greatest achievement. My 8-year-old self thought that, even more so than when I won second place at a Fling the Crocodile contest at a holiday camp just before my 5th birthday, by the looks of it. I have zero recollection of this particular event in my life, but I do have it on good authority that there were more than 2 people taking part. So, on to Kerrang. Here is that edition of Kerrang that I spotted myself in this week in 2002. Now, for those of you who don't know a lot about Kerrang, it's a rock magazine aimed primarily at teenagers and people in their 20s. When you go into your 30s, you tend to look through it and be like, really? Hence the target audience. It's been going since the early 80s. I think it actually celebrated its 40th anniversary this year, although it's since the start of the pandemic, it has been on hiatus as a print publication. So time will tell whether it does return, but in the meantime, it's gone the NME route and been a good old-fashioned website. In 2002, there was no such thing as a good old-fashioned website. This was all new and exciting. So, I will get to the bit that I appeared in a bit, but first of all, this is the Badger Show, and we like looking at old magazines and analysing through them, and we need to talk about just how 2002-esque this magazine is. So it's got Tim Wheeler from the band Ash on the front cover. Ash is still going strong. I think they headlined... No, they didn't headline, but they did have played quite a few festivals recently, and I dare say Tim Wheeler probably doesn't actually look all that different to how he does here. So, what do we got? Win a guitar. Party hard. 48 hours in New York with Ash. Sex, drugs, madness, and Queen Adrena. The main emphasis being on Queen Adrena, who were a band who kind of made a few waves at the time. Oh Mummy, it's Nile. Nile are a death metal band obsessed with Egyptology. Hence the Oh Mummy bit. I was a little small chihuahua. Earth Calling Filter's Richard Patrick. Filter were another band who were featured in lots of these magazines at the time. Bra Beyond Driven. Ladies' fashions from Pantera. There's a totally logical explanation behind that headline, which we'll get to in a bit. Plus, Miss Sugar Rock Out. Stars with Crap Hair. And Cheese Racing. Let's go to the bit on cheese racing because it's quite early on in the magazine. Right. Webhead. So they had this section for websites, totally random websites that they found online. Bear in mind this was 2002. Most people had internet access by 2002, but most people still had dial-up. Broadband wasn't really a thing. So, Cheese Racing, the official homepage of the exciting cutting-edge sport known as cheese racing. Here you will find everything you need to know about this deceptively simple yet addictive and fiercely competitive sport. Talks a bit about make sure that you drink something alcoholic before playing it. Processed cheese. This website represents all that is great about Britain. The sport, as it is cheekily described, involves throwing slices of unwrapped cheese onto a barbecue. The wrapper refuses to melt, and some kind of weird science makes it inflate. And that is all. And there you go. So I did try and look up cheeseracing.org, but it appears the website doesn't exist anymore, which is a huge loss for the internet. I'm sure we'll all agree. If you're out there and you want to revive cheese racing, then go right ahead. I'm sure Badger and I would be happy to cover it in a future video. Vote for the 100 greatest singles ever. This is the bit about stars with crap hair. So we've got one of Jane's Addiction, one of Korn, one of Hell is for Heroes, if anyone remembers them, and Corey Taylor from Slipknot. This was kind of like just after he'd been unmasked. You know, of course, Slipknot wear masks, giant masks that cover their entire face. Not, you get the idea. So yeah, this whole idea of him having a proper face and stuff was relatively unheard of at the time. So, going a bit further, here's the thing about Pantera and ladies' fashions. There's a store called Pantera, which has nothing to actually do with Pantera, that's launched in Dubai. So maybe Pantera would look at that and get some ideas for merch. I don't know. Okay, there's some hotly tipped bands. There's a hotly tipped band called Longwave. Me neither. The aforementioned interview with Ash. Giant picture of Charlotte Hatherley, who was in the band at the time because, you know, heterosexual teenage male audience. There's an interview with Filter. At the time, we always thought of filtering as being something that you did with water, not something that you did with photos. But yes, there's an interview with them. I think they only had a couple of hits over here. There's a advert for the new Nickelback single. For the record, people didn't think much of Nickelback back then either. There's an interview with the band Miss Sugar. We're here to be a band, not to do smack and F chicks. Quote from a member of the band. A lot of rock stars probably feel very called out by that. There's an interview with Katie Jane Garside from Queen Adrena in the bath. Not sure why. There's an advert for The Story So Far, the third album by Sponge. I own that album. It's their weakest. There's an interview with a band called Face to Face. Me neither. There's an interview with a band called Halo. I do remember their singer had a very high-pitched voice. I'm talking, you've proved your point, you can take off that vice clamp from down there now. In Kerrang TV, of course, Kerrang TV is still a channel that plays lots of videos. We used to have it on at work occasionally in a store that I used to work in. Because Scuzz TV would not play the same 10 songs again and again and again and again. Either way, point proven. Number one on Kerrang TV Top 20 videos this week is Tribute by Tenacious D, which is probably quite high up their top 20 now, actually, as well. And there's a few others as well. There's Korn, there's Puddle of Mud, if anyone remembers them. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Sponge, Chop Suey by System of a Down, which still gets played a lot, and Incubus, and so on and so forth. There's a live review of Jane's Addiction playing their first gig in over 10 years. Jane's Addiction are one of these bands who've kind of got back together and split up and got back together again quite a few times over the years. I remember I was going to see them at Reading Festival one year, but they pulled out at the very last minute. Feeder doing a live review. I've seen Feeder lots of times. They're really good. A few others as well. Now this is the most 2002 thing about this magazine. Ringtones. Of course, and this was the days before smartphones. So, you know, everyone had Nokia phones back then. And if you didn't want your phone to go diddle-doo-doo, 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 then you could get it to make a sound that was kind of like one of these songs here. So, yeah, you know, you could have a Limp Bizkit song or a Linkin Park song or a Bon Jovi song. Whether it actually sounded like the song in question was potluck, really. And you could also get these. Oh, my goodness. You could get wallpapers, basically band logos for those instances where you weren't doing anything with your phone. So, yes, if you had an unhealthy obsession with any of those bands, that's what you could do. So, then we're on to album reviews. Album of the week is In Their Darkened Shrines by Nile. Nile are an American death metal band, and all their songs are about Egyptology, which makes a pleasant change from most death metal albums. Most death metal bands tend to sing or growl or scream about violent death, gore, and pledging allegiance to Satan. 3 things that we do not advocate in any shape or form here on The Badger Show. Singles of the week. Single of the week is Weezer and Keep Fishing. We probably all thought Weezer were going to be one-hit wonders after Buddy Holly with that Happy Days video, but thankfully they've proven us wrong. And they're reviewed by Christian Daly, who, of course, lots of you will know as being a West Ham and Scotland footballer, and apparently played in a band called South Playground, which is very innuendo-esque. Crashing on, there's one random film review of the film Insomnia. Gig of the week is Garbage, not literally, the band Garbage, playing at the London Electric Ballroom. Now, I briefly met 3/4 of Garbage at a record signing in France when I was living there. And Shirley Manson said to me, "I like your top." And it was this top. Friends or Wrong. Australian punk band I was obsessed with for a couple of years. So yes, this shirt is like 20 years old, but I can't get rid of it because I'd be letting Shirley Manson down, and you just don't do that. Okay, moving along, we've got there's a ton of gig listings. There's more ringtones and wallpapers. Lots of tours that are happening. There's a random letters page. Someone thinks that the drummer from System of a Down looks just like Eric Cantona. I'll leave you to decide that for yourself. And there's highlights from Kerrang.com's message board. Now, before we had things like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, people probably wonder what we did with ourselves in 2002 on the internet before we had any of those things. Well, I can tell you, we had forums and message boards. And yeah, not a lot's changed since then. So, here's a few highlights from Kerrang's message board. From Vim Fuego, farmers do not feed magnets to cows. Someone clearly needed telling that. From DEFCON 1, Elvis died the death of a pathetic junkie while on the crapper. He had loads of number ones, but couldn't manage that lost number 2. All opinions expressed are purely of theirs and do not reflect those necessarily of The Badger Show. From Mr. Freeze, beneath the weeping willow lies a weeping wino. From Mr. Zombie, the true measure of a man is how he treats someone who can do him absolutely no good. True words there. From King Mob, hardcore gets boring when the kids stop being interested in ideas and music and start getting interested in merch. I agree. From Miss Self-Destruct, watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. If that turns up as a meme on a random Pinterest or Instagram page anytime soon, remember where you heard it first. From Helion, finally, well, spank my ass and call me Julie. That situation where I need to use that will arise at some point, and I'm glad I knew it first. More fancy pictures for your Nokia phone. And finally, an interview with David Draymond from Disturbed, who probably these days has to be constantly telling people he's not Howie Mandel. Quote from him, "If I want to bury my face in a girl, I'll take my chin piercings off. That's good to know, matey." Crashing on, back to the bit that I'm in. So, Kerrang had this thing every year at Virgin Megastore in Oxford Street, back when Oxford Street had a Virgin Megastore, and it was called the Kerrang Day of Rock, where they'd clear out the basement floor of the store and put a stage up and host a ton of bands. The shop was not designed for something like that, and it was probably a health and safety nightmare. Some highlights of the year, I went to quite a few of them. I do remember one year when The Darkness headlined one year, Bring Me the Horizon played one year, and the guitarist was running up and down the escalators. It was truly something to behold. Biffy Clyro played there a few times as well. My youngest sister, who I went with one year, actually broke her glasses in the mosh pit during that gig. So yeah, there's some kind of good claim to fame there as well. Got injured in a Biffy Clyro gig long before anyone else. So there was about 5 or 6 bands playing. Reef, their singer is this guy here. They headlined. Reefer best known for the song Place Your Hands. They did have about like 5 or 6 other top 20 hits, so it's a bit harsh to call them one-hit wonders. So they headlined, but there was also sets from In Me. In Me are still going, and they actually hail from not far away from me, actually, in Brentwood, where I do my radio show. So not too far from Badger and I. Other bands who are not still around include The Pattern from California, jangly indie. A band called the Kennedy Soundtrack from Wales, very rap rock, which was very in at the time. And also this band, the 80s Matchbox Beeline Disaster, who hailed from Brighton, had a few hits. They were quite metal-esque. And if you look at this photo very clearly and very closely, I will put a bigger picture up, but just here, there's me. This is when their singer ran into the audience while still screaming his head off. And yes, there is me. And I was so chuffed when I spotted myself in this issue of Kerrang. And I have been a bit of a fame-hungry attention hoe ever since. So yes, and that was how I made a cameo in an edition of Kerrang. And this is nearly 2 decades old now, but I still treasure it to some extent. So yes, and there you go. Well, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope that brought back some good memories of some bands gone by. If you have any memories of music in 2002, I know lots of you watching this weren't alive in 2002, and ultimately it's not your fault that your parents chose to have you later, but also you're growing up too fast. That's all for me today. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, then let us know, because I'd be happy to do more of these magazine review content videos for you. I've been Nick Field. This has been The Badger Show. Thank you all so much for listening. Keep safe, keep well, much love everyone, as Badger says, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.